In this lesson, we are going to learn how to use French Randing for round bases. This is by far the finest looking weave for bases and maybe altogether. The brilliancy of using French Randing in bases is that we start off with tips, and in the beginning where the spaces are quite small, the weavers are really thin, and as the spaces grow bigger, the weavers grow thicker, and this is absolutely brilliant and efficient and results in the finest weave possible. It has some downsides to it. It's harder to control, I think, and perhaps harder to shape with, but for me, I really like the workflow of French Randing. Once you have all of your weavers inserted and you're just inside the work and it flows and it's continuous, and I really love being in that state. Another challenge for me, at least in French Randing, is to get the length of the weavers right, because if you don't get it right, as I didn't get here, I used too short of weavers, and then I had to complete with the several rows of Waling, which is also fine, looks good, but it's hard to know what length of weavers you need to get a certain diameter of base. So that could be a challenge. Here I used a really long weavers to make this large base in a single rand. And this is the most beautiful thing to me, when you have a single rand of French Randing for the entire base. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I actually want to show another type of join here. This is when joining tips, especially when the tips are very fine like this. I like to join tip to tip and work with both tips together, old and new. So here as well, I will work with, let's put this one underneath, both tips together, and this way we do not have a weak point where we joined. So I really like this joint. Sometimes it could be very handy, especially sometimes maybe you have too many joins in one place, and once again you're about to your weavers finish over this joint, so instead of just trimming the tip ends, you just join like this and go over the old the previous join. So this is one example, and also in situations like this in the beginning, I really like to use it. Alright, hope I have enough here. I should have 24 weavers for this. And I start by simply inserting one weaver like this. Second weaver goes over it. Now the third weaver can actually go over the first, but let's not do it because I think it's a little bit confusing that way. Now the fourth weaver I will work twice with, and it will go over the second weaver here. So we have two here piled up, and we have to pile up when we are French randing a base. If we're not piling them one on top of the other, it's going to be a real mess, you know, weavers everywhere. You know, you have to keep them grouped somehow. So now I've also weaved twice, and I have two here. And now I can actually weave 3 times and create a pile of 3 here. I prefer not to do it right now, not to do this right now. I'm just going to create, you can say, a new pile here. We got these 1 and 2 single ones, and now I'm going to double them actually. Before I started, I made sure to get the weavers nice and wet, because they are going to be out in the air for a long time. So now I've weaved twice, and I made another pile of 2 here. Once again, a pile of 2, and now I'm actually going to triple this pile. The work is pretty intuitive here. I mean, you can use, you know, piles, as I like to call them, of 2. You can use piles of 3, 4, however you feel like doing this. So now I've actually piled 3 here. On top of one another. And also here, a pile of 3. I hope you can see that. I like to work very slowly and fasten my work nicely, especially in the first rounds. So now I have 2 piles of 3 here, one after the other, and I think now we're not going to pile another one. We're going to start a new pile, you can say. So I'm going to stop here. If I make another move, another stroke, I'm going to pile 4, and I don't want that for now. So I just I began a new pile. This weave is a little hard to control. It's hard to shape with, but it is no doubt the finest, most beautiful technique for bases. And now I've started piling here. I have a new pile of 2 here, and you pretty much get the idea now. Let's fasten our work a little bit. Hope you can see what I'm doing here. Let's fasten our work once again. Beautiful. So now you can see that the benefit of this working method is that we have all the weavers grouped in one area. We cannot work when they are, just spread it all around one by one. So we have to use this method. Now, sometimes, many times they will, the weavers will try to they will get out of their place into the back like this, and sometimes I like to use something like this just to hold them from getting out of their place. So maybe I'll use one, maybe two of these, just to keep the first weavers in place. So let's just go on here. For this, I decided to make a 6x6 base that we are later going to join uprights 1 to 1. So the spaces are going to be quite small when we finish here. And I found that it is easier to work with French Randing when you have smaller spaces. They tend to stay in place better. So this is what I did. Of course, this is you can say it's a lot more work and it's a lot harder, but I think it makes for a very, very fine looking weave, and I really love it. So that's why I'm doing it here. Now, since the weavers are going to be, out in the air for a long time, you may want to get them wet every now and then. So this time I think I'm actually going to create a pile of 4 here. It's okay. It's a pretty intuitive work. So I have 2 piles of 4 here. I don't want the weavers to spread too much. I want it to be grouped in a single area, so I started making piles of 4. I think the first pile I made was 2, and then 3, and now 4. Or perhaps 2 piles of 3 and now 4. It doesn't really matter. Just do whatever you want. Alright, where are we? I think we are at the last one now. Or perhaps one before the last one. We'll find out soon enough. I really love the rhythm of this work, and I want to say calmness of this work. You know, you have all your weavers intact, and there's something, you know, really, for me at least, really relaxing about it. I really, really love it. Now let's see if we need another one here. This is the first. No, we've inserted the last one. And now, before I continue here, I would like to go over this entire thing and just fasten the work a little bit. Great. Now, as you can see, one side of the basket is now larger than the other, but this should even itself out as we progress. Alright, so now I have two groups of three here. I don't know if you can see that. I have two groups of three. So obviously the weaver that has to work should be on the bottom of one of these two groups. If there's an even number, I would say that, you know, if there's an even number, then the first one should work, the one on the right. And now that I've worked with it, let's just make a couple of moves here. Now I have a group of two and a group of three. Two groups here, one group of two, one group of three, and since in this group there's one more, the one on the bottom on the second group should now work like this, underneath everything. Or you simply, you know that one of these two has to work, but it has to work in an alternation. So if you've chosen one of them and there's no alternation in the weave, then you've chosen wrong. So it's really not that complicated to get it right. Now I have two groups of two here in the beginning. After that I have more groups. I have two groups of three and then more groups, but I'm just looking at these two groups now, and two groups of two means I have to work with the bottom one of the first group. If one of the weavers breaks, it's just a matter of joining in the back and replacing it. It's really, really simple. So now there's a single one and then a group of two and then a pair, you can say. So the bottom one of the pair should work, but it should work underneath that weaver that's before him, like that. Perfect. Could have used longer weavers here, but I'm glad I found use for these leftovers. Alright, so I didn't do a very good job sorting the length of my weavers, and some of them turned out to be significantly shorter than the others. So we will have to, stop our section according to the shorter ones. So I finish on the back like that. Perfect. Oh, there's one of them is actually so short that it might not even, oh, it can hardly hold itself in the back here. Great. So now we have to border that with something. So usually I will either border the section with paring, or I can actually make a foot rim while bordering the rendered section. But here I think we might actually want to expand our base a little bit before we finish it. These spaces here are still very, very small, and we may want to do a few rounds before we actually finish here. So let's just trim off our ends. Let's begin from the tip ends here. Now these, I'm going to cut them quite long for now, and then later I'm going to trim them again. I don't want them to jump out for now. The weavers should be pretty thick, to really give us height from the bottom side. Should be really thick. They should hold everything in place. When you weave it right after a French Randing section or after just rending the base, they should hold themselves in place nicely. They should be thick. They should give height. So I've chosen these weavers for this matter. They shouldn't be very long in this case, because they are only going to have to do half the base. Of course, they have to be longer than half the base. And you want them to, if I start here and finish here, I want to finish, with the weavers still quite thick. So that's about choosing the weavers. Now, what sort of waling do we want to use? I think, to me, 5-rod wale is the method of choice for this, but it could also be a 4-rod wale, over 2 and behind 2. I like to have an over 2 weave in the upper side, because I feel like it really closes the gap between the base and the sides. So I would prefer that. So for now, let's begin a 5-rod wave, and we begin with tips with the butt ends. I'm just gonna hold them one by one. It's going to be much easier that way. Right, over 2 and behind and underneath 3. And actually you wanna have a significant length of the butt end facing towards the other side, because it's going to make your life easier in the end where you have to, you know, thread the ends through here. There's a slight kink here. Let's see if we can do something about it. It's fine, I guess. Alright. Now here I started with just the butt ends, but actually you can kind of alternate. You can use 3 butt ends and 2 tip ends, or 3 tip ends and 2 butt ends, and it might actually make the foot rim more even in thickness. But I think this is the classic method. Perfect. Let's just see if we can wrap that up a little bit. Beautiful. Now, when should we begin our second group? I like to think of this stick as the first one, because I'm going behind it. This one jumped out because I'm going behind it. So in this case we have a base of 24 sticks. So we're going to divide it into 2 groups of 12. So this will be the first. This is 12 here. This is the last one of the first group. And this is right here the first one of the second group of 12. So the first join will be behind this. So I will actually weave one more, and I will start joining here. But so now I can actually cut this first one, and now I continue on weaving underneath 3, and then when I get to this I will have nothing to work with and I will have to join, and this will be my signal. Underneath 3, over 2, and underneath 3. Beautiful. So here is where we're going to make our first join, but I still want to see if I can fasten the work a little bit. Alright, so now we're going to join butt ends to these tip ends. Let's see what we got here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't need this one. Alright, no, this one is a bit too thick, I think. Alright, so this is where we make our first join. Moving it out of the way a little bit, getting in underneath it if I can, which I can't, so I'm going to slipe the end a little bit. All right. Tight squeeze. All right, we did it. So I can actually cut all the rest. in order to not get confused, but I don't really have to. I don't have to cut them. I can just replace them without cutting them now. Let's pull on it a little bit. Perfect. Over 2 and underneath 3. Beautiful. Look at this beautiful tall rim. It's going to make the basket really nice and stable. Alright, now since those weavers are quite thick, it's going to be pretty difficult to thread them through at the end. But I hope we'll manage. So now this one actually joined the first one already. Joins it like this, and they are laying side by side like that. And now this is split, so let's try it. Maybe soften the tip a little bit. Now the second one is going to join the second beginning right here. I hope you can see what I'm doing here. The first two are really difficult, but then it starts to hold itself in place. Alright, these are laying side by side. Let's use our pliers here. Great. Alright, let's see if I can still fasten the work a little bit. Perfect. This now I will join the third one right here. Behind 3. And to get it extra fine, I will use my pliers here. I think the hardest thing is to get the first one to sit in place nicely. Alright, 2 more. And we can actually twist them a little bit. Now this one. Over 2 and underneath 3, and last one. Can you see? Beautiful. Let's just make sure it goes behind 3. Perfect. That's it. Now we can trim the ends, and we've made our foot rim. Now some people actually, I've seen that some people are actually doing this after inserting uprights to the base, and while the uprights are still spreaded to the sides, they're making this foot rim, and I would really strongly suggest against this. It's incredibly difficult to do. You really don't wanna go through this all of this difficult process. I mean, if you're going to make the foot rim after you inserted the uprights, then you're going to do it after they have been kinked upwards in the first rows of the upset. I mean, why do it like this? It doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah. You want to cut the ends here in a way that they will not, disturb the stability of the rim and of the basket. And these three, I just wanted to show the end result here, and the foot rim underneath. Look at this thing, absolutely beautiful. This is going to give a lot of stability to the basket. Oh no, I actually see that I made a mistake here. I went over 3 and behind 2, and you can actually tell right here, but it's okay.